What's going on, guys? So it's been a little while since I had the Aston Martin on the channel, but this is a pretty exciting video. I'm really excited to put this out for two reasons. One, we're going to look at a nearly $3 million Lamborghini today, and two, I get to put out a video that I've been excited to put out since the first day I bought my Aston Martin, and that video is this video. So here we go. So before I go right into talking about what I really want to talk about, I just want to kind of explain why I'm making this video, and it's got nothing to do with like bragging or anything like that, because I mean, this is honestly a 15-year-old car, and I'm actually feeling pretty sorry if anybody feels that this is a brag. But anyway, so through the years of just, buying cars and, having fun, hobby, whatever, I've probably lost thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars over the years on the cars, and that's why I wanted to make this video, because I found a way to stop that from happening, and I wanted to share that with you guys. Cars aren't typically investments, although the Lamborghini we're going to look at today most certainly would be considered an investment. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But just because, the cars you buy aren't investments doesn't mean they have to be bad investments or cash trades. Another thing I want to say is this doesn't just apply to 15-year-old Aston Martins. You could apply this to pretty much any car that you're interested in buying. But there's a couple really important conditions that obviously have to be met, or you're gonna have a bad time. And if you don't really care about losing money, and you don't care about negative equity, then honestly you could probably just skip this video. But if you want to get the money out of something that you put in, then keep watching. This one's for you. So Maserati of the main line was nice enough to open all these doors for us here, and Lambo of Philly?
Yep, Lambo of Philly.
Lambo of Philly was also part of this here. Beautiful car. Come see these guys, buy a car or three.
Or three.
All right, so before I actually get into it, we're gonna start with a little bit of a mindset shift. So typically when people buy cars, they're used to them going down in value. You buy something, let's say just, a random Honda Civic or something like that. You buy a brand new car and, it's worth, I don't know how much those things even cost now. Let's say $40,000. You buy a brand new Civic, couple options with it, whatever. $40,000, 0 miles. You drive the wheels off of it basically for 5 years. So you've driven it, 40,000 miles. Now the car is worth a lot less. So you're making this payment on this car. And as you're making a payment on something worth $40,000, as the car depreciates, maybe now it's only worth, it could be worth $20,000 or something like that. Either way, you've lost $20,000 of depreciation, and you are responsible for, paying that car off, even though your car is now worth, roughly half of that in that example I just used. And honestly, that happens. That happens all the time with like brand new Mercedes, especially vehicles like that. Luxury cars are known particularly to depreciate. My Aston Martin being one of them. And that probably makes it slightly more confusing how I basically got to drive this car for almost free. But here's how that works. So somebody else ate the depreciation on this Aston Martin. Somebody else bought this car for $160,000 and drove it 50,000 miles. And, you know, I purchased it at 50,000 miles for a lot less than that. So because somebody else already ate that depreciation, and because of when I bought in to the car, think of the car kind of like a stock. Because of where I bought in, the car isn't going to lose value anymore. I bought a higher mileage car on purpose, because if I bought a car that had, I don't know, 10,000 miles on it and I drove it another 20, I'm still going to experience some depreciation. So to get around that, you can either buy a very low mileage car and not drive it a whole lot, or you can buy a higher mileage car that's already cheaper than a lot of other ones, because a lot of people aren't going to care if a car has 50,000 or 60,000 miles on it, you know, one or the other, I'm saying. Anyone interested in a car that high would probably buy either one if it was in good enough condition. And in the Aston Martin specifically, there isn't really too much of a price difference between the 50 and 60,000 miles. So the reason I'm telling you guys this is because the car selection is probably the most important part of this. You want to pick a car that's basically at the bottom of its depreciation curve, and that's a vehicle that's more or less done depreciating. And you'll find a lot of cars here that fit the category of, you know, they're too old to be, you know, like valuable, where a lot of buyers would want them, but they're kind of too new to be like a classic vehicle or a collector car or something like that. And my Aston Martin definitely fits, you know, that category. That also means that the Lamborghini Centenario that we looked at earlier and my DB9 have, you know, one thing in common, in the fact that, you know, they kind of hold value. And while the Centenario appreciated, the Aston Martin didn't exactly appreciate. There we go. It didn't lose any value because it's already 15 years old and it already has a lot of miles on it. It's not really going to depreciate anymore unless, you know, it has like an R title or something, which it does not have. But let's take a look at that Centenario, for example. That car had a sticker on it of like, I think $1.9 million, something like that. And I'm not allowed to tell you the reserve auction price when that car goes to Pebble Beach next week, but it's over $3 million. All right, guys. So I guess this is the time where I use my own model on my own car. And as I said earlier, this is something I've kind of been looking forward to doing since I bought the car, because, you know, to be honest with you, you know, there's a good chance that something could come up with the car that, you know, completely washes away your finances, you know, knock on wood. You know, these cars are kind of needy. They can be. And, you know, there is the chance that something terrible could happen. But anyway, let me show you guys what I have here, because I broke everything down here. So I negotiated my car down to $39,000, and I got free tires with the car, and I also got a free window motor put in because it needed one. And I was able to negotiate all that stuff into the price of the car, which was just great. Let that be a nice negotiation tip for you guys. If you can't always get, you know, how much you want financially off, they can sometimes include things that would cost you more to do yourself, such as tires. You know, I got $1,600 of tires for free, literally free. All I had to do was pay to get them on. But I got my purchase expenses, and I broke that down into just the principal and basically how much money it took me to get the car home. I wouldn't normally include this because that included like, I got like a hotel, I stayed with some friends, gas, food, stuff like that. But I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't bought the car. So because of that, I included it in. Obviously, I'm not going to include fuel just because, you know, I mean, some people don't really drive these cars all that much, and some do. It varies, so I left it out. You know what I mean? Anyway, so the subtotal of the purchase expense was $39,800. So now we're going to move down to maintenance. And For maintenance, now we're looking at, actually this alone will probably shock half the people. I spent $400 on maintenance the entire time I owned the car. And that was one oil change, that was $160. The filter itself is $60, the rest of it's oil. The power steering fluid change was $60, and I spent $180 getting the tires put on. As I already mentioned, the tires themselves were free. So that brings us to a total of $400 in maintenance on a V12 Aston Martin, which is awesome. And now we got all the government stuff, insurance, sales tax, registration, stuff like that. That's just a tad over $4,000. So anyway, if we total all that stuff up, we're at $44,240. But as you're aware, this is a car that isn't going down in value, and actually, because I purchased the car almost wholesale, I'm actually projected to sell the car for a little bit more than I paid for it, especially now that I have a nice little binder full of receipts for it that I didn't have when I purchased it. So now the car comes a little bit with, like, you know, like a track record. I think I can get $42,000 for my car. It's in a pretty desirable color, and it's in really good condition compared to some of the other similar cars that I've seen in my area, at least. So if we do the math here, if we deduct these numbers, that means that I'm about $2,000 in the hole on the entire car, including everything, tax, registration, and even maintenance. We're at negative $2,240. That's all I've spent on the car. So if we break that down over a 1-year figure, that's $187 a month I spent all in to own a V12 Aston Martin. All right, so as you guys know, I purchased my car in December 2020, so that means right about now, what is it, July? Yeah, I've had this car for about 8 months, so if I sold the car today for that projected sale price, that means for the past 8 months, I've been paying $280, you know, because 280 times 8 is roughly 2,240, and that's including everything. That's literally all these items summed up. That's all that I've spent, including insurance and everything. The only thing I left out, as I said, was gas. You know, keep cars like this in consideration. There's lots of cars that you can do this with. You can do this with Ferraris, as I showed you a little earlier. You can do this with $2 million, $3 million Lamborghinis. It's actually perfect. I didn't even plan it that I was gonna go see that car when I was filming this video. It just kind of happened that way. So I guess that's good for you guys, because I got to show you another example of it. But really, any car that people would want to buy, even 10 to 15 years after it was made, you know, there's a couple of cars I'm looking to purchase in the future, and just about every single one of them will also, you know, fit the bill for this. I mean, even looking back, I've owned like diesel Mercedes, you know, W123s, and you know, I was able to follow a similar model just because, you know, those cars aren't going down in value. One of them, my coupe, I missed that one terribly. That's one of the few cars I actually regret selling. That car, I bought it with 200,000 miles on it for $3,000. I put 50,000 miles on it, and I sold it for $3,000. And, you know, obviously I put a lot of money into maintenance in that, because, you know, it's an old 30-year-old car, and I was daily driving that, by the way. But, you know, still, I mean, you know, it's $3,000 versus, you know, $40,000 or, you know, $2 million if you bought the Lamborghini I talked about earlier. But, you know, the concept still stands, and this is definitely a scalable concept, as I've already shown in the video here. So hope you guys learned something, and maybe you're looking at financing cars a whole different way. And actually, I made a whole other video just on car financing. You can check that out at the top here if you are new to the channel. Thanks for watching, guys.
You're good. You're not. I think we're good, right?
We're good, yeah.
No, you're good.